The rain had started just before dusk. The kind of drizzle that never quite turned into a downpour but soaked you to the bone over time. As the drops tapped softly against the window pane, Detective Evelyn Moore stood in the entryway of the old, weathered train station. It was the same one she'd left all those years ago, when she swore never to return to Briar Hollow, the small, fog-choked town she'd grown up in. It hadn't been a choice to come back this time, at least, not entirely. When the call had come, she hadn't been able to ignore it. There were whispers that the town's long-running string of disappearances had begun again. Briar Hollow had never been the safest place, even back in the days when Evelyn was just a girl running through the streets. The town seemed to exist in a perpetual state of twilight, caught between past and present. And that was before the fog, an unnatural, dense mist that often rolled in at nightfall, creeping through the narrow streets like a living thing. Evelyn had been one of the lucky ones to leave. But some things, some memories, follow you. As she stepped off the platform and onto the cobbled streets, the familiar scent of wet earth and wood smoke clung to the air. The town hadn't changed much. There was still the same old butcher shop with its crooked sign, the bakery with its warm lights spilling out onto the sidewalk, and the faded blue door of the sheriff's office, the paint peeling in places. But then, there was the silence. No children playing in the park. No couples strolling along the river. The town felt empty. Her boots clicked against the cobbles as she made her way toward the sheriff's office, her thoughts a whirl of unease. The last disappearance had been 3 years ago, and it had shattered whatever sense of normalcy remained in the town. A local college student, Lily Graves, had gone missing during a late-night walk near the cemetery, swallowed up by the fog. The sheriff had assured everyone it was just another case of someone wandering off. But Evelyn had known better. She'd looked at the evidence, what little there was, and felt a cold pit form in her stomach. It wasn't the first time the fog had taken someone, and the people of Briar Hollow were beginning to suspect what they feared most: something unnatural was happening. Inside the sheriff's office, a single light burned, casting long shadows over the cluttered desks and old filing cabinets. The sheriff, a tall man with a graying beard, looked up from his paperwork with a grim smile. "Evelyn," he said softly, as though the weight of the years since she'd left hung between them. "We're glad to have you back. Even if it's for this." "I didn't expect a welcome party," she replied, her voice as cool as the air outside. "What's going on, James?" He sighed, rubbing his hand over his face. "It's worse than before. People are disappearing again. And this time, there's something else." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Something else?" He nodded. "People are saying they see shadows in the fog. Figures that aren't quite right. And there's something about the way they vanish, Evelyn. It's not like before. It's almost as if they were taken." She felt her pulse quicken, but she fought to keep her composure. "What do you mean, taken?" "Like the fog eats them. The way they vanish isn't natural. 1 minute they're there, and the next, nothing but a trail of mist." "Have you found any evidence of foul play?" Evelyn asked, her mind already racing through possibilities. James shook his head. "No body, no signs of struggle, nothing to link these disappearances. But there's always something left behind, something strange, like a pattern in the fog. Every time someone goes missing, there's a sort of mark left on the ground. Like a footprint, but wrong. It looks almost like a symbol." Evelyn frowned. "A symbol? What kind of symbol?" James hesitated. "I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's not like anything from the town's history. It doesn't even look human." The hairs on the back of her neck stood up. "Show me." The cemetery was on the outskirts of town, nestled near a forest where the trees grew thick and twisted, as though the land itself had become gnarled with age. Evelyn had spent many days playing here as a child, though she had never ventured too far into the woods. Even then, there had always been an air of wrongness about this place. Something oppressive, as though it weren't quite part of the world. James led her past rows of cracked gravestones, their inscriptions long faded. The fog clung to the ground in patches, swirling around their ankles like ghostly fingers. "There," he said, pointing to a patch of disturbed earth near the base of a tall, crooked tombstone. Evelyn knelt down, inspecting the ground. At first glance, it looked like just another footprint, deep, sunken into the soil as though something heavy had stepped there. But the shape was wrong. Too long, too thin. And the edges were sharp, as though the ground itself had been sliced open. James seemed to shrink back, as if unwilling to get too close. "That's the mark?" Evelyn asked. "Yes," he replied, his voice low. "Every time someone disappears, it's here. But look closely." Evelyn did, and as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw it. The footprint wasn't just a shape, it was a pattern. A strange, almost artistic design, etched deep into the earth, like a symbol of something ancient. It had a circular center, surrounded by jagged lines that seemed to radiate outward. It was unsettlingly familiar. "Where have I seen this before?" Evelyn muttered to herself, feeling the back of her neck tingle with something other than the cold night air. "You've seen it before, haven't you?" James said, his voice shaking. "You just don't remember. None of us do. Not until it's too late." Evelyn's eyes widened. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Before James could answer, a figure appeared from the mist, a shadow, hunched and dark, moving at the edge of the trees. Neither of them saw it at first, but when it stepped into the light of their lantern, Evelyn's heart stopped. It wasn't human. At least, not completely. A tall, gaunt figure with hollow eyes, its limbs too long and twisted to belong to any person. The creature moved with an unnatural grace, gliding toward them through the fog. Evelyn stood up instinctively, her pulse racing, her hand reaching for the gun at her side. But before she could draw it, the figure was gone, swallowed by the mist as quickly as it had appeared. "James," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. "What was that?" James didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the ground, his face pale. Then, his eyes locked with hers, full of something desperate. "You should leave, Evelyn. Before it's too late." Evelyn's mind raced. There was something about James's expression, something in his eyes that didn't sit right. She turned slowly, glancing back toward the mist-shrouded cemetery, her heart pounding in her chest. But when she looked, there was no sign of the creature. It had vanished, as if the fog itself had swallowed it whole. But the cold sensation remained, creeping up her spine, telling her that whatever was happening in Briar Hollow, whatever force was behind the disappearances, it was far darker, and far older, than anyone had imagined. A chill ran down her back as she slowly turned back to James. The look on his face was all the confirmation she needed. This town, its cursed fog, and the strange symbols, it was all connected. And whatever was lurking in the mist wasn't going to stop with just one person. It would be back. And it was waiting for her. Did Evelyn just make it out alive? What's hiding in the mist? Will the fog claim yet another victim? Or worse? If you want to know what happens next, make sure to hit that like button and comment part 2 down below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, so you don't miss the terrifying continuation of the Mist of Briar Hollow. Until next time, stay out of the fog.